The sun was setting over Pine Ridge, a small village tucked away in the Colorado mountains. Only 200 people lived there and everyone knew everyone else. The houses were old but well kept. The streets were quiet. The nearest big town was 2 hours away on roads that twisted and turned through the mountains. Sarah Chen stood outside her small house, watering the flowers in her garden. She was the village schoolteacher, 28 years old with long black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She had lived in Pine Ridge for 5 years now, ever since she left the city to find a quieter life. The children loved her because she made learning fun. The parents trusted her because she cared about every student like they were her own. As Sarah turned off the water and picked up her watering can, something caught her eye. She looked up at the darkening sky. There, above the eastern ridge of the mountains, bright red lights appeared. They were not stars. They were not planes. They were flares burning bright against the purple sky. Sarah watched carefully. The flares were not random. They formed letters, SOS, someone was calling for help. Her heart started beating faster. She dropped the watering can and ran toward the village square. Her feet pounded against the gravel road. She had to tell someone. Someone was in trouble up in those mountains. The village square was the center of Pine Ridge. It had a small park with benches, a flagpole, and a notice board. A few people were there enjoying the cool evening air. Old Mr. Peterson sat on his usual bench reading the newspaper. Mrs. O'Brien, the village nurse, was walking her dog. Tom Rodriguez, the mechanic, was closing up his garage across the street. Sarah ran into the square, breathing hard. She pointed at the sky. Look, up there. Someone is sending an SOS signal. People stopped what they were doing. They looked up. More flares appeared, spelling out the letters again, SOS. Then they faded away, leaving trails of smoke in the air. Well, I'll be, Mr. Peterson said, folding his newspaper. That's not something you see every day. Mrs. O'Brien walked closer to Sarah. Are you sure it's not kids playing around? Sometimes teenagers from the next town come up here for camping trips. No, Sarah said firmly. Those are real distress flares. Someone needs help. More people started gathering in the square. News traveled fast in a small village. Within minutes, about 30 people had come out of their houses to see what was happening. They all stared at the sky, talking among themselves. Sheriff Morrison arrived in his police truck. He was a big man, 60 years old with gray hair and a thick mustache. He had been the sheriff of Pine Ridge for 25 years. Nothing much happened in the village, and he liked it that way. He climbed out of his truck slowly, looking tired. What's all this fuss about? He asked. Sarah pointed at the sky again. Sheriff, someone is sending SOS signals from the eastern ridge. We need to send a search party. The sheriff squinted at the sky. Another set of flares went up, brighter this time. The letters were clear. SOS, but the sheriff just shook his head. Could be anything, he said. Probably just some kids with fireworks. They do this kind of thing all the time. Sheriff, those are real distress flares, Tom Rodriguez said, stepping forward. Tom was 32, strong and practical. He knew about tools and machines and outdoor equipment. I used those same flares when I was in the National Guard. Someone is in real trouble. Sarah felt frustrated. We have to do something. What if someone is hurt? What if they are dying up there? The sheriff sighed. All right. Let me try the radio. Maybe someone reported a missing person or a vehicle accident. He went back to his truck and picked up the radio. He tried calling the state police, static. He tried calling the forest ranger station, more static. He tried calling the next town. Nothing but crackling noise. Radio is not working, he announced. Must be the storm from yesterday. Knocked out some of the equipment. What about cell phones? Someone asked. Sarah pulled out her phone. No signal. She looked around. Others were checking their phones too. Everyone was shaking their heads. The cell service in Pine Ridge was always bad. But after yesterday's storm, it was completely gone. The landlines are down too, Mrs. O'Brien said. I tried calling my sister this morning, nothing. The crowd started talking louder. Some people were worried. Others still thought it was nothing. The flares went up again, more desperate this time. 3 sets in a row. SOS. Sorso, and that's not kids playing around, said Maya Patel, a 16-year-old girl who loved hiking. She was tall and athletic with her hair cut short. She knew every trail in these mountains. That's someone who really needs help. And they are sending multiple signals because no one has come yet. Sarah turned to the sheriff. We need to go up there. Tonight. It's getting dark, the sheriff said. Those mountain trails are dangerous even in daylight. After the storm, there could be fallen trees, mudslides, all kinds of hazards. We should wait until morning. Morning might be too late, Sarah said, her voice rising. Tom stepped up beside Sarah. I'll go. I have flashlights and emergency supplies in my garage. I know those trails pretty well. I'll go too, Maya said. I hike up there all the time. I can navigate in the dark, Sarah nodded. And I'm going. We need at least 3 people. The sheriff rubbed his face. He looked tired and unsure. I don't like this. It's dangerous. But if you are going to go anyway, take supplies. Food, water, first aid kit, rope, blankets. And take the emergency radio. Maybe it will work better up in the mountains. We will leave at first light, Tom said. 5 in the morning. That gives us time to prepare and still get up there early. Sarah wanted to leave right now, but she knew Tom was right. Going up in complete darkness was too risky. If they got hurt, they could not help anyone. The crowd started to break up. Some people went home. Others stayed watching the sky. The flares kept coming every few minutes. Whoever was up there was not giving up. Sarah went home to pack. She filled a backpack with water bottles, energy bars, a first aid kit, extra clothes, and a blanket. She put on her hiking boots and warm jacket. She tried to sleep but could not. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those flares in the sky. Someone was up there scared and hurt, waiting for help. At 3 in the morning, she heard something, a deep rumbling sound like thunder. But it was not thunder. It was something else. Something mechanical, like a vehicle or machinery. The sound came from the direction of the eastern ridge, then faded away. Sarah sat up in bed, her heart pounding. Whatever was happening up there, it was serious. At 4:30 in the morning, she got up and grabbed her backpack. She walked to the village square. Tom was already there, loading supplies into his old pickup truck. Maya arrived a few minutes later carrying her own backpack and a walking stick. Did you hear that sound last night? Maya asked. I heard it, Tom said. Sounded like a vehicle. Maybe someone crashed. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. A crash would explain the SOS signals. Someone could be trapped in a vehicle, hurt and unable to move. The sky was starting to turn light gray in the east. Dawn was coming. A few more villagers arrived to see them off. Mrs. O'Brien handed them an extra first aid kit. You be careful up there, she said, and bring whoever it is back safe. Sheriff Morrison pulled up in his truck. He still looked skeptical, but he handed Tom a radio. This is the emergency radio. If you find anyone, call it in. I will organize more help if you need it. Tom nodded and clipped the radio to his belt. The 3 of them climbed into Tom's truck. He started the engine and drove toward the eastern trail. Sarah looked back at the village. People were standing in the square watching them go. She felt the weight of responsibility. They were going up into dangerous mountains to find someone they did not even know. But that was what you did. When someone called for help, you answered. As they drove up the rough road toward the trailhead, the sun began to rise. The mountains looked beautiful in the morning light. But Sarah knew they could be deadly. Somewhere up there, someone was waiting. Someone who had been sending SOS signals all night long. They would find that person. They had to. Tom drove his truck as far as he could up the mountain road. The road was rough and filled with rocks. Yesterday's storm had done a lot of damage. Water had washed away parts of the road. Fallen branches covered other sections. Tom had to drive slowly and carefully. Sarah sat in the passenger seat holding onto the door handle as the truck bounced over rocks. Maya sat in the back, her eyes scanning the forest on both sides of the road. The sun was rising higher now, making the wet trees sparkle. After 30 minutes of slow driving, Tom stopped the truck. We have to walk from here. The road is completely blocked ahead. They all got out. Sarah could see what he meant. A huge tree had fallen across the road. Mud and rocks had slid down the mountain, covering everything. There was no way to drive through. They put on their backpacks and started walking. The trail was steep and slippery. Sarah's boots sank into the mud with every step. The air smelled like wet earth and pine trees. Birds were singing, which seemed strange. Everything looked so peaceful, but somewhere nearby someone was in danger. Tom led the way. He was strong and moved confidently through the difficult terrain. Maya walked behind him, her eyes on the ground. Sarah brought up the rear, trying to keep up. They walked for almost an hour. The trail got steeper. Sarah's legs started to hurt. Her breath came in short gasps. The backpack felt heavier with every step, but she did not complain. If someone was hurt up here, they had been suffering much longer than she had. Maya suddenly stopped. She knelt down and looked at the ground carefully. Wait, come look at this. Tom and Sarah walked back to where Maya was kneeling. She pointed at the muddy ground. There were marks in the mud, deep marks like tire tracks. A vehicle came through here, Maya said. And recently, too. These tracks are fresh. The rain would have washed away older tracks. Tom examined the marks closely. You're right, but these tracks go off the main trail. They go that way. He pointed into the thick forest. Who would drive off the trail? Sarah asked. That doesn't make sense. Maybe they lost control, Tom said. The storm, the mud, the rain. A vehicle could have slid off the road. Maya stood up and started following the tire tracks into the forest. The tracks go down the slope. Come on. They left the main trail and pushed through the trees. Branches grabbed at their clothes. The ground was covered with wet leaves that made every step slippery. The tire tracks were clear, though. They could follow them easily. The slope got steeper. Sarah had to grab onto trees to keep from sliding. She could hear running water somewhere below. A stream, probably swollen from yesterday's rain. Then Maya stopped suddenly. She held up her hand. Look down there. Sarah pushed through the last few trees and looked down. Her breath caught in her throat. Below them, at the bottom of a steep ravine, was a white van. It was turned on its side, half buried in mud and broken branches. The front was completely smashed. Equipment was scattered everywhere. Cameras, lights, cables, bags. Everything was wet and covered in mud. Oh my God, Sarah whispered. Tom was already moving down the slope, half sliding, half climbing. Someone could still be in there, come on. Sarah and Maya followed carefully. The slope was dangerous. One wrong step and they could fall 20 feet onto rocks. Sarah's heart was pounding. Please let whoever is down there be alive, she thought. They reached the bottom of the ravine. The van was bigger than Sarah first thought. It was a production van, the kind TV and film crews used. The side had some words painted on it, but they were covered in mud. Sarah could only make out a few letters. Tom ran to the van and looked through the broken windshield. Then he turned back to them, his eyes wide. There's someone inside. And I think it's John Cena. What? Maya said. The wrestler? The movie star? I'm serious. Come help me. Sarah ran to the van. She looked through the windshield. Inside, she could see a man. He was trapped behind the crushed dashboard. His face was covered in dirt and blood. His eyes were half closed. But even through all the dirt and injuries, Sarah recognized him. It really was John Cena, sir. Can you hear us? Tom shouted. The man's eyes opened slowly. He looked at them, confused at first. Then he seemed to focus. Help, he said. His voice was weak and rough. Please help. We're going to get you out, Sarah said. Just hold on. John Cena tried to move but stopped, his face twisting in pain. Can't move. Leg is trapped. Been here since yesterday afternoon. Sarah felt a chill run through her. He had been trapped here all night. In the cold. In the rain. Injured and alone, what happened? Tom asked, examining the dashboard to see how John was trapped. John took a breath. It seemed hard for him to talk. Scouting locations. For a film. We were driving up the mountain. Then the road just gave way. Mudslide, we went over the edge. We? Sarah said. There were others with you? John nodded weakly. My driver, Marcus. And Lisa, the production assistant. They got out. Went to find help. I couldn't move. I fired the flares. Had a flare gun in the emergency kit. Kept firing them. Hoped someone would see. We saw them, Maya said. The whole village saw them. John's lips moved in what might have been a smile. Thank God. I fired the last one about an hour ago. Thought maybe no one was coming. Tom was working around the dashboard trying to figure out how to free John. The metal was bent and twisted. John's leg was pinned underneath. This is going to take some work. Sarah and Maya, look for tools in the equipment. Maybe a crowbar or something. Sarah and Maya started searching through the scattered equipment. Most of it was broken. Cameras with cracked lenses. Lights with shattered bulbs. But then Maya found a metal case. She opened it. Inside were tools. Basic stuff, but useful. A small crowbar, a hammer, some wrenches, got it. Maya carried the case back to Tom. Tom took the crowbar and started working on the dashboard. He pushed and pried, trying to bend the metal. John gritted his teeth, trying not to make sounds of pain. Sorry, man, Tom said. I know this hurts. Just get me out, John said. Sarah knelt by the broken window. Your crew, Marcus and Lisa, which way did they go? John pointed with his hand. It was shaking. Marcus went upstream, following the water. Thought it might lead to a road. Lisa went that way, toward where the main road should be. That was yesterday, late afternoon. I don't know if they made it, Sarah felt worried. If they had been gone since yesterday afternoon, they could be anywhere. They could be hurt too, lost or worse. A loud crack made everyone jump. A big piece of the dashboard had broken off in Tom's hands. He tossed it aside and kept working. Getting there, Tom said. Just a little more. Then Sarah heard something. A low rumble. At first she thought it was thunder, but the sky was clear. The rumble got louder, and then she realized what it was. Mudslide, she shouted. Another mudslide is coming. Everyone looked up the slope. Sarah could see it now. A wall of mud and rocks sliding down the mountain, heading straight for them. Trees were cracking and falling. The ground was shaking. We don't have time, Maya yelled. Tom pulled harder on the crowbar. His face was red with effort. Almost got it. Just hold on. The mudslide was getting closer. Sarah could hear it clearly now. A roaring sound like a train. She wanted to run, but she could not leave John. She could not leave any of them. Tom gave one final desperate pull. The metal bent. John's leg came free. He screamed in pain, but Tom was already pulling him out of the van. Move! Move! Tom shouted. Sarah grabbed one of John's arms. Maya grabbed the other. Tom supported his injured leg. They half carried, half dragged him away from the van. John tried to help, pushing with his good leg, but he could barely stand. The mudslide hit the van with a tremendous crash. The van crumpled like a tin can. It disappeared under tons of mud and rocks and broken trees. The noise was deafening. There! Maya pointed to a large boulder about 20 feet away. Get behind that! They stumbled toward the boulder, slipping in the mud. The mudslide was spreading out now, coming toward them. They reached the boulder just as the edge of the mudslide arrived. They pressed themselves against the rock as mud and debris flowed past on both sides. It lasted maybe 30 seconds, but it felt like forever. Sarah closed her eyes and held on to John, feeling the ground shake beneath her feet. She could hear rocks hitting the boulder. She could feel mud splashing against her legs. Then slowly it stopped. The rumbling faded. The shaking ended. Everything became quiet except for the sound of water dripping and small rocks still falling. Sarah opened her eyes. They were all covered in mud, but they were alive. The boulder had protected them. Just barely. Tom looked back at where the van had been. There was nothing there now, just a huge pile of fresh mud and broken trees. If they had been 30 seconds slower, they would have been buried under it. John was breathing hard, leaning against the boulder. His face was pale. His leg was bleeding, but his eyes were clear. He looked at each of them. You saved my life, he said. You actually saved my life. Don't thank us yet, Tom said. We still have to get you down this mountain, and we need to find Marcus and Lisa. John straightened up a little, though Sarah could see how much pain he was in. I'm not leaving until we find them. They're my responsibility. They were only up here because of me. Sarah looked at John with new respect. Even injured, even after being trapped all night, his first thought was for his crew. This was not just some celebrity worried about himself. This was a good person. Tom and Sarah supported John between them. He put one arm around each of their shoulders. His injured leg dragged a little, but he tried his best to help by pushing with his good leg. Every few steps John would grunt in pain, but he never asked them to stop. They moved slowly along the ravine, following the stream. The water was rushing fast, brown with mud from the storm. Sarah's arms were already getting tired from supporting John's weight. He was a big man, strong and muscular, but she did not complain. She just kept walking. Marcus is smart, John said between heavy breaths. He was in the army for 6 years. He knows survival skills. If anyone could make it out here, it's him. How far did he go? Tom asked. I watched him for maybe 10 minutes before I lost sight of him. He was following the stream, heading upstream. Said streams always lead somewhere. They continued along the water's edge. The ground was rocky and uneven. Several times they almost slipped into the stream. John's face was getting paler. Sarah could see sweat on his forehead despite the cold morning air. We need to rest, Sarah said. No, John said firmly. Marcus has been out here all night. We keep going. Sarah admired his determination. Most people in his condition would be focused only on getting help for themselves. But John kept pushing forward, worried about his crew. After about 20 minutes of difficult walking, Tom suddenly stopped. "Listen, do you hear that?" They all went quiet. Sarah strained her ears. Over the sound of rushing water, she heard something else. A voice. Someone was shouting, "Help! Is someone there? Help!" "That's Marcus," John said, his face lighting up. "Marcus, we're coming!" They moved faster now, following the voice. The shouting got louder. Then Sarah saw him. A man was sitting on a rock beside the stream, waving his arms. He was black, maybe 40 years old, with short hair. His pants were torn and his face was scratched, but he was alive. "Marcus," John called out. Marcus stood up and nearly fell back down. He was limping badly. When he saw John being supported by Tom and Sarah, his eyes went wide. "John!" "Oh, thank God you're alive. I tried to get help, but I hurt my ankle and I couldn't go any further. I've been sitting here all night hoping someone would come." They reached Marcus and he grabbed John in a tight hug. Both men had tears in their eyes. Sarah felt her own eyes getting wet. The relief on both their faces was powerful. "These people saved me," John said, gesturing to Tom and Sarah. "They saw the flares. They came up here and pulled me out of the van right before another mudslide hit." Marcus looked at Tom and Sarah with gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I thought—" His voice broke. "I thought I'd lost my best friend." Tom examined Marcus's ankle. It was swollen and bruised. "This is pretty bad. Can you walk on it at all?" Marcus tested it and winced. "A little, but not far." Now they had two injured men. Sarah looked at Tom. They could not carry both of them down the mountain. They needed more help. As if reading her thoughts, Tom said, "Maya should reach the village soon. Help will come, but we still need to find Lisa." "Lisa," John said, his face growing worried again. "She went toward the main road. But she's young, only 23. This is her first production job. She's not experienced with wilderness." "Which direction?" Sarah asked. John pointed across the stream toward the thick forest. "That way." She was trying to reach the main road. Thought it was maybe a mile through the trees. But in this terrain, a mile can take hours. Sarah made a decision. "Tom, you stay here with John and Marcus. I'll go look for Lisa." "Alone?" "No way," Tom said. "It's too dangerous. We don't have a choice. You need to stay with them in case they need medical help. I'm the lightest and the fastest. I can move through the forest quicker than you." Tom did not like it, but he knew she was right. He pulled out a whistle from his backpack and handed it to her. "Take this. If you find her, blow it 3 times. We'll hear it and know you're okay. If you get into trouble, blow it continuously and I'll come find you." Sarah took the whistle and put it around her neck. She also took a water bottle and the first aid kit. "I'll be back soon. Be careful," John said. "And thank you. For everything." Sarah nodded and started walking. She had to cross the stream first. She found a spot where rocks made stepping stones across the fast water. She jumped from rock to rock, her arms held out for balance. The last jump was far, but she made it, landing on the opposite bank. She entered the forest and immediately felt closed in. The trees were thick here. Pine trees, aspen trees, old oaks. The ground was covered in fallen needles and leaves. It was darker under the trees, cooler. Sarah pulled her jacket tighter. She did not have a clear trail to follow. Lisa could have gone in any direction. Sarah decided to walk in the general direction John had pointed, toward where the main road should be. She called out as she walked, "Lisa, can you hear me?" "Lisa!" No answer, just the sound of wind in the trees and birds calling. Sarah kept walking, pushing through branches, climbing over fallen logs. Her legs were tired. Her clothes were still damp and muddy from earlier. But she kept going. After maybe 30 minutes, she found something. A piece of cloth caught on a branch. It was blue, like a jacket. Sarah's heart beat faster. This could be from Lisa. She looked around more carefully now. A few feet away, she saw broken branches. Someone had pushed through here. She followed the trail of broken branches and disturbed ground. "Lisa," she called again. "Lisa, if you can hear me, make a noise." This time she thought she heard something. A faint sound like a voice. Sarah moved toward it, calling out again. "Lisa, keep making noise. I'm coming to find you. Here." A weak voice came from somewhere ahead. "I'm here." Sarah pushed through a thick patch of bushes and almost fell down a small slope. At the bottom, huddled against a tree, was a young woman. She was Asian, with long black hair tangled with leaves. Her blue jacket was torn. She was shaking from cold. "Lisa?" Sarah asked. The woman looked up, her eyes red from crying. Yes, who? Who are you? My name is Sarah. I'm from Pine Ridge Village. We saw the SOS flares. I'm here to help. Lisa started crying harder, but this time from relief. I've been lost all night. I tried to find the road, but I just kept going in circles. I'm so cold. I thought no one would find me. Sarah quickly took off her own jacket and wrapped it around Lisa. Then she sat down next to her and opened the water bottle. Here, drink this. Small sips. Lisa drank the water gratefully. Her hands were shaking as she held the bottle. Are you hurt? Sarah asked. My feet are all blistered, and I think I twisted my wrist when I fell earlier, but mostly I'm just cold and tired. John and Marcus are safe, Sarah said. We found them. They're about a half-hour walk from here. Lisa's face filled with hope and worry at the same time. John is okay? I was so worried. He was trapped in the van. We tried to get him out, but we couldn't. The metal was too strong. Marcus and I decided to split up to find help faster. It was a good decision, Sarah said. Your flares worked. The whole village saw them. There are search teams coming up the mountain right now. Sarah pulled the whistle from around her neck and blew it 3 times. The sharp sound echoed through the forest. That would let Tom know she had found Lisa. Can you walk? Sarah asked. Lisa tried to stand, but her legs were wobbly. Sarah helped support her. My feet really hurt. But I can try. We'll go slow, Sarah said. The important thing is we found you. You're safe now. They started walking back through the forest. Lisa leaned heavily on Sarah. Every few steps, Lisa would wince in pain. Sarah felt bad for her but kept encouraging her. You're doing great. Just a little further. 1 step at a time. It took them almost an hour to get back to the stream. By the time they arrived, Lisa was exhausted and could barely walk. But when she saw John sitting on the rock with Tom and Marcus, she started crying again. John! Lisa! John tried to stand up, but Tom held him down.
Stay sitting, man.
Your leg. Sarah helped Lisa across the stream. As soon as they reached the other side, Lisa and John hugged. Both were crying now. Marcus joined the hug. The 3 of them held each other, relief and gratitude pouring out. Tom looked at Sarah with respect. You found her. I knew you would. Sarah felt proud but tired. She sat down on a rock, finally allowing herself to rest. Her whole body ached, but everyone was safe. That was what mattered. John finally let go of Lisa and looked at Sarah with tears still in his eyes. You have no idea what you've done for us, for me. I was trapped in that van thinking I might die up here, thinking my crew might be lost because of me. This was supposed to be a simple location scout. I chose this remote place to get away from everything for a while, and it nearly cost us our lives. And why were you up here? Tom asked. This is pretty far from Hollywood. John smiled sadly. I was researching for a new role, a film about ordinary people doing extraordinary things in a crisis. I wanted to understand what real courage looks like, not the movie version. Turns out I got a real lesson in it today. He looked at Sarah and Tom. You 2 are the real heroes. You risked your lives to save people you didn't even know. No cameras, no glory, no reward. You just did it because it was right. Sarah felt embarrassed. Anyone would have done the same. No, John said firmly. Not everyone, trust me. I've met a lot of people in my life. What you did today, what your village did, that's special. The journey down the mountain took 3 hours. The men carrying the stretchers had to stop many times to rest. The path was difficult and dangerous. Several times they nearly lost their footing on the slippery ground, but slowly, carefully they made their way down. Sarah walked near the front of the group, helping to clear branches from the path. Tom supported Lisa, who limped along bravely despite the pain in her feet. Maya ran ahead to let the village know they were coming. When they finally reached the bottom where Tom's truck was parked, everyone was exhausted. They loaded John and Marcus into the truck bed, making them as comfortable as possible with blankets. Lisa sat in the cab with Tom and Sarah. As they drove back toward Pine Ridge, Sarah noticed Lisa staring out the window at the mountains. You okay? Sarah asked. Lisa nodded slowly. I just keep thinking about last night. I was so scared. I thought I was going to die out there. Every sound made me jump. I kept imagining wild animals. And the cold was terrible. I've never been so cold. Sarah put a hand on Lisa's shoulder. But you survived. You stayed calm enough to stay alive. That takes strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt like a fool. I moved to Los Angeles 6 months ago to work in film production. This was my first big job working with John Cena. I wanted to impress everyone. And then this happens. I probably ruined my career before it even started. That's not true, Tom said from the driver's seat. You survived. You helped save John by going to find help. You're a hero, Lisa laughed bitterly. I got lost. Some hero. You tried, Sarah said. That's what matters. When things went wrong, you didn't give up. You kept fighting to survive. As they drove into Pine Ridge, Sarah was shocked by what she saw. The entire village was gathered in the square. More than that, there were news vans. 3 of them, and reporters with cameras. How did they find out so fast? Tom said, surprised. Maya appeared at the window as Tom stopped the truck. Sheriff Morrison called the state police about the rescue. Someone heard it on the police scanner and called the news stations. They got here about an hour ago. They've been waiting. The moment the truck stopped, reporters rushed toward them. Cameras were rolling. Microphones were pushed forward. People were shouting questions. Is it true John Cena was rescued? How badly is he injured? Can we get a statement? Sheriff Morrison and several villagers formed a line, holding the reporters back. Give them space. These people need medical attention. Mrs. O'Brien had set up the community center as a medical station. With help from the villagers, they carried John and Marcus inside on the stretchers. Sarah helped Lisa walk through the crowd. The reporters kept shouting questions, but Sarah ignored them. Inside the community center, it was quieter. Mrs. O'Brien had prepared 3 beds with clean sheets. She had medical supplies laid out on tables. 2 paramedics had arrived from the next town. They immediately went to work examining John, Marcus, and Lisa. The older paramedic, a man named Davis, looked at John's leg with concern. This is serious. The bone might be fractured. You need to go to a hospital for x-rays and probably surgery. How long before the helicopter gets here? Mrs. O'Brien asked. Should be about 30 minutes. We called it in as soon as we heard. They're sending a medical helicopter from Denver. John was lying on the bed looking pale and tired. But when he saw Sarah standing near the door, he smiled. Hey, come here. Sarah walked over to his bedside. Up close, now that they were in good light, she could see how badly injured he really was. His leg was swollen to twice its normal size. He had cuts and bruises all over his face and arms, but his eyes were clear and focused. I need you to do something for me, John said quietly. What is it? Those reporters outside. They're going to want a story. They're going to want to talk about me, the celebrity who got rescued. But that's not the real story. What do you mean? The real story is you, and Tom and Maya and this village. You're the ones who saw someone in trouble and came to help. No hesitation. No asking what's in it for you. You just helped. That's the story that should be told. Sarah felt uncomfortable. I don't want to be on the news. I know. Most real heroes don't, but people need to hear about this. About Pine Ridge. About what real community looks like. He grabbed her hand. Will you at least think about it? Before Sarah could answer, a reporter burst into the community center. Sheriff Morrison was right behind him, looking angry. Sir, you can't be in here, the sheriff said. The reporter ignored him and pointed his camera at John. Mr. Cena, can you tell us what happened? John's expression changed. The friendly, grateful man Sarah had been talking to was replaced by someone who looked harder, more controlled. This was the celebrity face, Sarah realized. The public persona. I'll give a statement outside in a few minutes, John said firmly. Right now, these medical professionals need to do their work. Please respect that. The reporter tried to ask more questions, but Sheriff Morrison grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. Out, now, or I'll arrest you for interfering with medical treatment. The reporter finally left, still holding his camera. The sheriff locked the door behind him. Sorry about that, the sheriff said to John. These news people have no manners. John laughed, then winced in pain. I'm used to it. But thank you for protecting us. The paramedics continued their work. Davis listened to John's lungs, checked his blood pressure, and examined the cuts on his face. The other paramedic, a young woman named Chen, took care of Marcus and Lisa. Outside, Sarah could hear the crowd getting bigger. More voices, more cameras. The quiet little village of Pine Ridge had suddenly become the center of attention. Tom came into the community center through the back door. It's crazy out there. More news vans just arrived, and people from other towns are starting to show up. Everyone wants to see where John Cena was rescued. This is going to change everything, Mrs. O'Brien said quietly. She was washing her hands at a sink in the corner. Our little village is going to be famous. Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. She did not want fame. She just wanted to go back to her quiet life. Teaching children, tending her garden, reading books in the evening. But she knew Mrs. O'Brien was right. Everything had changed. The sound of helicopter blades filled the air. Through the window, Sarah could see a red and white medical helicopter landing in the field next to the community center. The paramedics immediately went into action. Time to go, Davis said. He and Chen started preparing to move John onto a proper medical stretcher for transport. John looked around the room at all the people who had helped him. Marcus and Lisa were watching from their beds. Mrs. O'Brien stood with her arms crossed, looking satisfied that she had kept everyone stable. Tom and Sarah stood together near the wall. Maya had just come in through the back door. Before I go, John said, his voice stronger now, I need to say something. To all of you. Everyone went quiet. I came to these mountains looking for a story about courage, about what real heroism looks like. I thought I would have to imagine it, create it for a movie. But I found the real thing. You people, this village, you showed me what it means to care about others more than yourself. He looked at Sarah. You ran up a dangerous mountain to help a stranger. You put your own life at risk. He looked at Tom. You used your skills and your strength to save someone you didn't know. You never hesitated. He looked at Maya. You guided everyone safely. You ran for help when we needed it most. He looked at the sheriff and Mrs. O'Brien. You organized your whole village to help. No questions asked. John's voice got emotional. In Hollywood, I'm surrounded by people every day. But most of them want something from me. Want my fame, my money, my connections. Here you wanted nothing except to help. That's rare. That's special. And I will never ever forget it. The paramedics gently lifted John onto the transport stretcher. They started wheeling him toward the door. Marcus and Lisa would go in the helicopter too. As they moved John toward the exit, he reached out and grabbed Sarah's hand one more time. I meant what I said earlier. This isn't goodbye. I'll be back. And when I come back, I'm going to do something for this village. Something meaningful. That's a promise. Then he was gone, wheeled out to the waiting helicopter. Sarah watched through the window as they loaded all 3 patients. The helicopter blades spun faster. Dust and leaves swirled in the air. Then the helicopter lifted off, carrying John Cena away from Pine Ridge. The crowd outside erupted in noise. Cameras flashed. Reporters talked into microphones, and then they all turned toward the community center. Here they come, Tom said with a sigh. The sheriff unlocked the door. Immediately, reporters pushed inside, all shouting questions at once. Who found John Cena? How did you know where to look? Can we get an interview? Sheriff Morrison held up his hands. Everyone quiet. If you want information, you'll get it. But you need to be respectful. This is our community center, not a circus. The reporters settled down a little. The sheriff pointed to Sarah, Tom, and Maya. These 3 people are the ones who found Mr. Cena and his crew. If they want to talk to you, that's their choice. But you will not harass them. Understood? The reporters all nodded and murmured agreement. But their eyes were hungry. They wanted the story. The next morning, Sarah woke up to the sound of voices outside her house. She looked through the window and saw a small crowd of people on the street. Some had cameras. Others were just looking around, taking pictures of the village. Sarah groaned. She had hoped the attention would die down quickly. But it seemed to be getting worse. She got dressed and walked to the village square to get coffee from the small cafe. The cafe was owned by an older couple, the Johnsons. Usually there were only a few customers in the morning. Today the place was packed. Every table was full. People were standing in line outside the door. Mrs. Johnson saw Sarah and waved her over. Sarah, honey, come through the back. I saved you a coffee. Sarah gratefully accepted and slipped through the back entrance. Mrs. Johnson handed her a hot cup of coffee and a muffin. This is insane, Mrs. Johnson said, looking at the crowd. We've never had this many customers. I ran out of pastries an hour ago. Had to call the bakery in the next town for an emergency delivery. I'm sorry, Sarah said. This is all because of the rescue. Don't be sorry. This is good for business, but it's also overwhelming. These tourists keep asking where John Cena was found. They want to take the same route up the mountain. Sheriff Morrison is losing his mind trying to keep them safe. Sarah sipped her coffee and looked out at the crowd. She recognized some faces from the village, but most were strangers. People who had driven from other towns, maybe even other states, just to see Pine Ridge. Tom appeared at the back door, looking tired. Thought I'd find you here. Have you checked your phone? I turned it off last night. Probably smart. Mine hasn't stopped ringing. News stations want interviews. Talk shows want us to appear. And get this, someone offered me $10,000 for a photo of the rescue site. What? That's crazy. Tell me about it. I said no, obviously. But it shows how big this story has become. Tom accepted a coffee from Mrs. Johnson. Maya's family is dealing with the same thing. Her parents are trying to protect her from all the attention. She's only 16. Sarah felt guilty. She had not thought about how this would affect Maya. The girl was still in high school. This kind of publicity could be overwhelming for anyone, but especially for a teenager. We need to talk to the sheriff, Sarah said. We need to figure out how to handle this. They found Sheriff Morrison at his office, which was really just a small building next to the post office. He looked like he had not slept. Papers were scattered everywhere on his desk. His phone was ringing constantly. Please tell me you're here to help and not to ask for something, the sheriff said when he saw them. We want to help, Tom said. This situation is getting out of control. The sheriff leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. You have no idea. I've had 3 people get lost on the mountain trails today because they tried to find where the van crashed. I've had reporters show up at people's houses. I've had tourists blocking the roads taking pictures. And it's only been 1 day. What can we do? Sarah asked. Honestly, I don't know. This is way beyond what I'm trained to handle. This is a village of 200 people. We don't have the resources to deal with this kind of attention. Sarah's phone, which she had finally turned back on, buzzed. It was a message from a number she did not recognize. She opened it. Dear Ms. Chen, this is Marcus Webb, John Cena's driver. John asked me to contact you. He is recovering well from surgery. The doctors say he'll be in the hospital for about a week. He wanted you to know that he's grateful and that he hasn't forgotten his promise. He also wanted me to give you his personal contact information in case you need anything. Please feel free to reach out. The message included a phone number and an email address. Sarah showed the message to Tom and the sheriff. John wants to help. Maybe we should contact him. Ask for advice on handling this situation. The sheriff nodded. At this point, I'm willing to try anything. Sarah stepped outside to make the call. She dialed the number Marcus had given her. After 2 rings, someone answered. Hello? It was John's voice, though it sounded tired and strained. John, this is Sarah Chen from Pine Ridge. Sarah! I'm so glad you called. How are you? How's the village? That's actually why I'm calling. John, the village is being overrun. Tourists, reporters, everyone wants to see where you were rescued. We don't know how to handle it. John was quiet for a moment. I was afraid this might happen. I'm sorry. This is my fault. It's not your fault. But we need help. The sheriff doesn't have the resources to manage all these people. Some of them are going up the mountain and getting lost. It's dangerous. Okay, give me a few hours. I'll make some calls. I know people who deal with this kind of thing all the time. We'll figure something out. Thank you, John. No, Sarah, thank you. You saved my life. Helping your village is the least I can do. After they hung up, Sarah felt a little better. At least they had someone with experience on their side now. That afternoon, things started to change. A professional security company arrived, hired by John. They set up barriers at the mountain trailhead and started controlling access. Only experienced hikers with proper equipment were allowed up. Everyone else was politely turned away. A public relations person also arrived, a sharp woman named Jennifer who worked with celebrities all the time. She set up a proper press area and scheduled organized interviews. This way, the reporters got their stories, but the villagers were not constantly harassed. Jennifer also advised Sarah, Tom, and Maya on how to handle the attention. You're going to be recognized for a while, she said. People are going to want your autographs, your photos. It's strange and uncomfortable, but it will pass. The key is to be polite but firm about your boundaries. Over the next few days, the chaos slowly became more organized. The security team kept tourists safe. Jennifer handled the media. Sheriff Morrison could finally focus on normal village business again. But the attention did not stop. If anything, it grew. Tom's garage suddenly had more work than he could handle. People from neighboring towns brought their vehicles to him, wanting to meet the hero mechanic. Tom hired 2 assistants just to keep up with demand. Mrs. Johnson's cafe became famous. People drove from hours away to eat where the rescuers ate. She had to expand her staff and her menu. Maya's situation was more complicated. Several colleges offered her scholarships for her tracking and survival skills. Talk shows wanted to interview her, but her parents were protective. They wanted her to have a normal teenage life, not become a celebrity. Sarah's life changed in ways she never expected. The school she taught at suddenly had a waiting list of parents wanting to transfer their children to her class. She received job offers from private schools in big cities, offering 5 times her current salary. Book publishers wanted her to write about the rescue. Movie producers wanted to buy the rights to her story. It was overwhelming. Sarah had never wanted any of this. She just wanted to teach children and live quietly. One evening, about a week after the rescue, Sarah sat on her porch watching the sunset. A car pulled up in front of her house. Jennifer, the public relations person, got out. "Mind if I sit?" Jennifer asked. Sarah gestured to the empty chair. Jennifer sat down with a sigh. "You look exhausted," Sarah said. "I am. But you should see John. He's in a hospital bed recovering from surgery and he's still working the phone trying to help this village." Jennifer looked at Sarah carefully. "He really cares about you all. This isn't just a publicity stunt for him. I've worked with a lot of celebrities. Most of them would have moved on by now. But John talks about Pine Ridge constantly. About you, Tom, and Maya. About how you changed his perspective on life. We just did what anyone would do. That's what makes it special. You really believe that?" Jennifer pulled out a folder from her bag. "John asked me to give you this. He wanted you to see it before it goes public." Sarah opened the folder. Inside were plans and documents. As she read, her eyes got wider. "Is this real?" Sarah asked. "Very real. John has been working on it all week. He's setting up a foundation, the Pine Ridge Foundation. It will provide scholarships for rural students who want to pursue higher education. It will fund emergency services for remote communities. And it will support people who show extraordinary courage helping others." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. This was huge. This would change lives, not just in Pine Ridge, but in communities all over the country. "He's putting in $5 million of his own money to start," Jennifer continued. "And he's already convinced several other celebrities to contribute. The foundation should have over $10 million by the time it launches. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. This is John's way of saying thank you. But there's more." Jennifer pulled out another document. "He wants you on the board of directors. You, Tom, and Maya. He says you 3 represent what the foundation is about. People who help others without expecting anything in return." Sarah looked at the document. Her name was listed as a board member. The responsibility felt enormous. "I'm just a teacher," Sarah said quietly. "You're someone who risked her life to save a stranger. That makes you exactly the kind of person who should be making decisions about who gets help." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sky turn orange and pink. "When will this be announced?" Sarah asked. 3 weeks after the rescue, Pine Ridge prepared for John Cena's return. The village had changed significantly in those weeks. The dirt road leading into town had been paved by the state government, after all the media attention brought safety concerns to light. The community center had been renovated. Tom's garage had expanded. Mrs. Johnson's cafe now had outdoor seating. But the biggest change was in the people themselves. They walked with more confidence now. They were proud of their village and what they had done. They were no longer just a forgotten small town in the mountains. They were the place where something meaningful had happened. Sarah stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her simple blue dress. She was nervous. Today was the foundation announcement. John would be here, along with press from all over the country. She would have to give a speech as one of the new board members. Public speaking had never been her strength. She taught children, which was different. Children were forgiving and kind. Adults, especially reporters and cameras, were intimidating. A knock on her door made her jump. It was Tom, wearing a clean button-down shirt and jeans. He looked uncomfortable in anything dressier than his usual work clothes. "You ready?" he asked. "No, but I don't think I'll ever be ready, so we might as well go." They walked together to the village square where the announcement would take place. A stage had been set up. Chairs for guests filled the area. Cameras were everywhere. Sarah recognized reporters from major news networks. Maya was already there with her parents. She wore a traditional Indian dress in bright colors. Despite being nervous, she looked excited. At 16, she was handling the attention better than Sarah expected. Jennifer, the public relations person, rushed over to them. Good, you're here. John's helicopter landed 10 minutes ago. He'll be here soon. Remember what we practiced. Short speeches. Focus on the foundation, not the rescue. Answer questions politely, but don't feel pressured to share anything too personal. Sarah's stomach churned. She wanted to run away, but she thought about what this foundation would do. All the students it would help. All the communities it would support. She could handle one day of discomfort for that. A murmur went through the crowd. Sarah looked up. A black SUV was pulling into the square. It stopped near the stage. The door opened. John Cena stepped out and the crowd erupted in cheers. He was walking with a cane, his injured leg still healing, but he smiled and waved. Behind him came Marcus and Lisa, both fully recovered now. John's eyes scanned the crowd until he found Sarah, Tom, and Maya. His face broke into a genuine smile. He walked directly to them, ignoring the cameras and reporters trying to get his attention. There they are, John said warmly. My heroes. He hugged Sarah first, then Tom, then Maya. The cameras went crazy, capturing every moment. But John did not seem to care about the cameras. He seemed genuinely happy to see them. How's the leg? Tom asked. Getting better every day. Doctors say I'll make a full recovery, thanks to you all. He looked around the village. This place looks great, really great. A lot has changed since you left, Sarah said. Changed for the better, I hope. Before Sarah could answer, Jennifer appeared. John, we need to start soon. Are you ready? More than ready. Let's do this. They all moved to the stage. Sarah, Tom, and Maya sat in chairs behind the podium. John stood at the microphone with Jennifer beside him. Marcus and Lisa sat in the front row with Sheriff Morrison, Mrs. O'Brien, and other village leaders. The crowd quieted down as John began to speak. 3 weeks ago, I came to these mountains for work. I was looking for inspiration for a movie role. I wanted to understand what real courage looked like. He paused, looking emotional. I found it, but not in the way I expected. I found it in a schoolteacher who ran up a dangerous mountain to help a stranger. I found it in a mechanic who used his skills and strength to save someone he'd never met. I found it in a teenage girl who navigated treacherous terrain to bring help. I found it in a small village that mobilized instantly when someone was in trouble. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. That experience changed me. When I was trapped in that van, injured and scared, I had a lot of time to think about my life, about what matters, about the difference between fame and meaning. John's voice got stronger. I've been famous for years. People know my name. They recognize my face. But here's what I learned. Fame is nothing compared to genuine human connection. Fame is nothing compared to people who care about you not because of who you are, but because you're a person who needs help. He gestured to Sarah, Tom, and Maya. These 3 people and this whole village, they showed me what really matters in life, not awards or money or celebrity. What matters is being there when someone needs you. What matters is community. What matters is caring about others. John pulled out a document from his pocket. So today I'm announcing the creation of the Pine Ridge Foundation. This foundation will have 3 main goals. First, it will provide college scholarships to students from rural communities, students who have the intelligence and drive to succeed, but lack the financial resources. We're starting with 50 scholarships this year, with plans to expand. The crowd applauded. Several people cheered. Second, the foundation will fund emergency services and equipment for remote communities. Towns like Pine Ridge shouldn't be left without proper resources just because they're far from major cities. We're going to change that. More applause. And third, the foundation will recognize and support ordinary people who do extraordinary things. People who help others without expecting anything in return. People who represent the best of humanity. John looked directly at Sarah. I'm putting $5 million of my own money into this foundation. Several of my friends in Hollywood have also contributed. We're starting with over $12 million. But this isn't about me. This is about celebrating and supporting people like Sarah, Tom, and Maya. He gestured for them to join him at the podium. Sarah's legs felt like jelly as she stood up. But Tom took her hand on one side and Maya took her hand on the other. Together, they walked to the microphone. These 3 people are the founding board members of the Pine Ridge Foundation, John said. They will help decide who receives scholarships. They will help determine which communities get funding. They will help identify people worthy of recognition. Because they understand, in a way that I'm still learning what it means to truly help others. John stepped back from the microphone and gestured for Sarah to speak. She had prepared a short speech, but suddenly her mind went blank. The crowd was staring at her. The cameras were rolling. She felt frozen. Then she felt Tom squeeze her hand. She looked at him and he nodded encouragingly. She looked at Maya, who smiled. She looked at John, who was watching her with pride and gratitude. Sarah took a deep breath and spoke. 3 weeks ago, I was just a teacher. I taught 2nd grade. I watered my garden. I lived a quiet life. Then I saw those flares in the sky and everything changed. Her voice got steadier as she continued. But here's what I want everyone to understand. I'm not special. Tom's not special. Maya's not special. We just did what any decent person should do. We saw someone who needed help and we helped. That shouldn't be extraordinary. That should be normal. The crowd was completely silent now. This foundation that John is creating, it's not really about us. It's about recognizing that every person has the capacity for courage. Every person has the ability to make a difference. You don't need to be rich or famous or powerful. You just need to care. Sarah looked out at the faces in the crowd. She saw her neighbors and friends. She saw strangers who had traveled here. She saw reporters who had come for a story but were now listening intently. If this foundation can help students get an education, that's wonderful. If it can help communities be safer, that's important. But what I hope most is that it reminds people of something simple. We're all connected. What happens to one of us matters to all of us. And when someone needs help, we should be there. Every time, no matter what. When Sarah finished, there was a moment of silence. Then the crowd erupted in applause. People stood up. Some were crying. Sarah felt overwhelmed but also proud. She had said what needed to be said. Tom spoke next, keeping it brief. I fix cars for a living. I work with my hands. I'm not good with words. But I know this. The people of Pine Ridge have always taken care of each other. That's what small towns do. We're just glad we could share that with John and his crew, and we're grateful for this opportunity to help others do the same. Maya spoke last. I'm only 16. I don't have a lot of life experience. But I know that the best moments in my life have been when I helped someone else, when I guided someone on a difficult trail, when I found someone who was lost. Those moments matter more than any trophy or grade or achievement. If this foundation can encourage other young people to help others, then I'm proud to be part of it. After the speeches, there was a question and answer session with reporters. John fielded most of the questions, but he made sure to include Sarah, Tom, and Maya in the conversation. He constantly redirected attention to them and to the foundation's mission rather than himself. When one reporter asked John if this was just a publicity stunt, he got serious. 3 months had passed since John Cena's rescue. Autumn had arrived in Pine Ridge, painting the mountains in shades of gold and red. The air was crisp and cool. The village had settled into a new rhythm, different from before but comfortable. Sarah stood at the front of her classroom, teaching a geography lesson to her 2nd graders. The children were more excited than usual. They knew that today was special. Today was the premiere of the documentary about Pine Ridge. Miss Chen, will we be in the movie? Asked Emma, a 7-year-old with pigtails. Some of you might be, Sarah said with a smile. The film crew spent time at the school. But remember, the documentary is not about being famous. It's about showing people what makes our village special. Like how everyone helped find Mr. Cena, another student asked. Exactly. Like how our community comes together when someone needs help. The school day ended early so families could attend the premiere. The documentary would be shown at the community center, which had a new projector and sound system. Donated, of course, by John. Sarah walked to the community center with Tom and Maya. The 3 of them had become close friends over the past months. They met regularly to discuss foundation business and had learned to navigate their new responsibilities together. Nervous? Tom asked as they walked. A little, Sarah admitted. I know we approved the final cut, but seeing it on the big screen with everyone watching is different. I think it's going to be great, Maya said. She had grown more confident over the past months. The scholarship offers had continued, and she had accepted one to study environmental science at Colorado State University. She would start next fall but was already planning to return to Pine Ridge during summers to help with the foundation. The community center was packed. Every seat was taken. People stood along the walls. The entire village was there, along with guests from neighboring towns. John sat in the front row with Marcus and Lisa. When he saw Sarah, Tom, and Maya enter, he waved them over to the seats he had saved. "Big night," John said. He was walking without a cane now. His leg had healed well, though he said it still ached when it rained. "I've seen the final cut a dozen times and it still gets me emotional." Jennifer stood at the front of the room. She had become a regular visitor to Pine Ridge, helping manage the Foundation's public relations. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to the premiere of The Village That Saved Me. This documentary has been a labor of love for everyone involved. It tells the story of Pine Ridge not through my words but through yours. I hope you're proud of what we've created together." The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. The documentary began. The opening shot was beautiful. The sunrise over the mountains with Pine Ridge nestled in the valley below. A narrator's voice, calm and warm, began speaking. "In the heart of the Colorado mountains lies a village of 200 people. To most of the world, Pine Ridge is invisible. A dot on a map, a place people drive through without stopping. But this village holds a lesson that the world needs to hear." The documentary told the story chronologically. It showed the storm, the flares, the rescue, but it spent most of its time on the people of Pine Ridge. Their daily lives, their values, their sense of community. Sarah watched herself on screen, interviewed in her classroom. She was talking about why she moved to Pine Ridge 5 years ago. "I left the city because I wanted to matter. Not in a big dramatic way, but in a real way. In the city, I was just another person in a crowd. Here I'm Sarah. I'm the teacher. I'm the neighbor. I'm part of something bigger than myself." Tom appeared on screen, working in his garage. "People think small towns are backward, like we're stuck in the past. But we know things that cities have forgotten. We know our neighbors. We help each other. When someone's car breaks down, we don't just fix the car. We make sure they're okay. We check on them. That's not backward. That's human." Maya was shown hiking in the mountains. "These trails taught me that everyone needs guidance sometimes. The strongest hikers still use maps. The bravest explorers still need help. There's no shame in needing others. The shame is in not helping when you can." The documentary showed the rescue in detail, but not in a sensationalized way. It was respectful and honest. It showed the danger, the fear, the determination, but it focused on the why, not just the what. John appeared on screen, speaking from his hospital bed shortly after the surgery. His voice was raw with emotion. "I've played heroes in movies. I've pretended to be brave for the camera. But I never understood what real courage was until I met the people of Pine Ridge. Real courage is not about being fearless. It's about being afraid and helping anyway. It's about risking your own safety for someone you don't even know. That's the kind of courage that changes the world." The documentary then shifted focus to what happened after the rescue. It showed the chaos, the media attention, the struggle to maintain normalcy. But it also showed how the village adapted and used the attention for good. Sheriff Morrison appeared on screen. "We could have closed ourselves off, could have told everyone to leave us alone, but we realized we had an opportunity to show people that small communities matter, that we have value, that we deserve support and resources just like big cities do." The documentary showed the foundation being established. It showed the first scholarships being awarded to students from rural areas across Colorado. It showed emergency equipment being delivered to remote communities. It showed people being recognized for helping others. One segment particularly touched Sarah. It showed a 17-year-old girl from a tiny town in Wyoming receiving a scholarship. The girl was crying as she held the acceptance letter from her dream college. Her parents, both farmers, were crying too. "I never thought this would be possible," the girl said on camera. "My family doesn't have money for college. I thought my dreams were just dreams. But because of what happened in Pine Ridge, because of what those people did and what John Cena created, I get to go to college. I get to become a teacher. I get to come back and help other kids like me." Sarah felt tears running down her cheeks. This was why it was all worth it. The attention, the chaos, the changes. This girl's life was different now, and she was just one of 50 students receiving scholarships this year. The documentary concluded with a sequence showing daily life in Pine Ridge 3 months later. The village going about its business. Children playing. People working. Neighbors talking. Simple, ordinary life. John's voice came in as a voiceover. "I came to Pine Ridge looking for a story about heroes. I found it. But the heroes were not who I expected. They were not soldiers or firefighters or police officers. though those people are heroes too. The heroes I found were ordinary people doing what they believed was right, and that's the most important lesson of all. Heroism is not about fame or recognition. It's not about being special or extraordinary. Heroism is about seeing someone who needs help and helping them. It's about caring for your community. It's about showing up when it matters. The final shot was of the Pine Ridge sign at the entrance to the village. Someone had added a small plaque underneath. It read, "Where Courage Lives." The screen faded to black. The credits rolled. The community center was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. Soon the entire room was applauding. People were standing. Some were crying. Others were smiling. Sarah looked around at her neighbors and friends. These were good people. They had always been good people. The rescue had not changed that. It had just shown the world what Pine Ridge had always been. After the premiere, there was a reception in the village square. Tables were set up with food donated by local families. Music played. Children ran around chasing each other. Adults talked and laughed. John found Sarah standing by herself near the edge of the square, watching the celebration. He walked over and stood beside her. "You did good," John said. "We all did." "True. But I want you to know something. Before the accident, I was losing myself. I was so focused on my career, on being famous, on maintaining my image that I forgot what really mattered. That night trapped in the van, I realized I had been living wrong, caring about the wrong things, chasing the wrong goals." He looked at Sarah. "You in this village, you reminded me what life is supposed to be about. Connection, community, caring about others. I can never thank you enough for that," Sarah smiled. "You've done more than enough, John. The foundation, the documentary, all of it. You've changed lives. We've changed lives. Together." John held out his hand. "Partners?" Sarah shook his hand. "Partners." Tom and Maya joined them along with Marcus and Lisa. The 6 of them stood together looking out at the celebration. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said. 3 months ago, we came here to scout locations for a movie about fictional heroes. Now we're part of a real story about real heroes. Life is strange." "Life is good," Lisa corrected. "Strange, yes. But good." Maya's phone buzzed. She looked at it and smiled. "The documentary is trending on social media. People are sharing clips and talking about it. The foundation website has had 10,000 visitors in the past hour. That means more donations," Tom said. "More scholarships, more communities we can help." Sarah felt a sense of satisfaction. The documentary was doing what they hoped. It was spreading the message, showing people that small towns mattered, that ordinary people could do extraordinary things. Over the next few weeks, the impact of the documentary became clear. Donations poured into the foundation from across the country. People shared their own stories of small-town kindness and community support. Other rural communities reached out, asking for help and offering to share their own stories. The foundation expanded faster than anyone expected. By the end of the year, they were able to offer 100 scholarships instead of 50. They provided emergency equipment to 20 communities. They recognized 30 people for outstanding acts of helping others. Sarah, Tom, and Maya threw themselves into the work. They reviewed scholarship applications together, debating which students had the greatest need and potential. They visited remote communities to assess what kind of equipment and support they needed. They researched people who had helped others, making sure the recognition went to those who truly deserved it. It was hard work, time-consuming, sometimes frustrating, but it was meaningful. Every scholarship awarded, every community helped, every person recognized made a difference. John visited Pine Ridge several times over the following months. He always came quietly, without fanfare. He would stay at the small bed and breakfast, eat at Mrs. Johnson's cafe, and walk around the village like a regular person. People in Pine Ridge treated him like a friend now, not a celebrity. One day in winter, John took Sarah, Tom, and Maya on a hike up the mountain. They stopped at the spot where the van had crashed. The wreckage was long gone, cleared away by cleanup crews, but the memory remained. "I think about that day a lot," John said, looking at the ravine, "about how scared I was, about how sure I was that I was going to die. And then you 3 appeared. Angels in hiking boots. We're not angels," Tom said. "We're just people. That's my point. You're just people. But you changed everything. Not just for me, but for thousands of others through the foundation. That's the power of ordinary people making the choice to help. Maya looked thoughtful.
Do you think we can keep this going?
I mean, long term. What if people forget about the story? What if donations dry up? Then we work harder, Sarah said. We tell more stories. We show more examples of people helping others. We prove that this matters. The foundation is not about one rescue. It's about a movement of people choosing to care. John nodded. Exactly. And I'm committed for life. This is not a project for me. This is my purpose now. I still make movies. I still do appearances. But what we're doing here, this is what I want to be remembered for. They stood in silence for a moment, looking out at the mountains. The same mountains that had almost killed John were now a symbol of something beautiful. A reminder that from danger and fear could come purpose and meaning. As they hiked back down, Sarah thought about her life before the rescue. Teaching in the city, lonely, disconnected. She thought about her life after moving to Pine Ridge, quieter, more connected, better. And now her life after the rescue, busier, more challenging, but deeply meaningful. She was still a teacher. She still tended her garden. She still lived in Pine Ridge, but now she was also part of something larger, something that would outlast her. That spring, the foundation held its first annual award ceremony in Pine Ridge. People from across the country came to celebrate the scholarship recipients and recognize those who had helped others. The village was filled with visitors again, but this time it felt different. Not chaotic, but celebratory. Sarah gave a speech at the ceremony. She talked about the importance of community, about the power of ordinary people, about how everyone has the capacity for courage. At the end of her speech, she said something that she had been thinking about for months. When we saw those SOS signals in the sky, we made a choice. We could have ignored them. We could have assumed someone else would help. We could have decided it was too dangerous, too difficult, too much trouble. But we chose to help. And that choice changed everything. Every day, each of us sees SOS signals in our own way. Maybe it's a neighbor who needs help. Maybe it's a student struggling in class. Maybe it's a stranger who looks lost or scared. We all have the choice to respond or to look away. What I've learned is that responding, helping, caring, it does not just change the life of the person you help. It changes you. It connects you to something bigger. It gives your life meaning. Sarah looked out at the audience, at the scholarship recipients starting new lives, at the community members being recognized for helping others, at her friends and neighbors who had supported the foundation from the beginning. So my challenge to everyone here, and everyone watching this online, is simple. Look for the SOS signals in your life, and when you see them, respond, help, care, because that's how we change the world. Not through grand gestures or dramatic rescues, though sometimes those happen, but through millions of small acts of kindness and courage happening every single day. The audience stood and applauded. People were crying again, but these were good tears. Hopeful tears. After the ceremony, John pulled Sarah aside. That was perfect. Exactly what needed to be said. I meant every word. I know. That's why it was powerful. John looked around at the celebration. You know, a year ago, if someone told me I would be spending my time in a small mountain village working on a charity foundation, I would have laughed. I had my life all planned out. More movies, more fame, more success. Do you regret how things changed? Sarah asked. John thought about it seriously. Not for a second. That accident, as terrible as it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It woke me up. It showed me what I was missing. It gave me purpose, he smiled. I'm happier now than I've ever been, richer in the ways that actually matter. And it's all because a small village saw someone in trouble and decided to help. Sarah hugged him. Thank you, John, for everything. For the foundation, for believing in us, for showing the world that small towns matter. No, Sarah, thank you. You saved my life, and then you helped me figure out what to do with that life. I'm the grateful one. As the sun set over Pine Ridge that evening, Sarah stood on her porch looking out at the mountains. The same view she saw every day, but it felt different now, fuller, more meaningful. She thought about the journey from that first moment she saw the flares to now. All the changes, all the challenges, all the unexpected turns. She thought about the students whose lives would be changed by scholarships, about the communities that would be safer because of better equipment, about the people who would be inspired to help others, and she thought about the simple truth that had started it all. When someone sends an SOS signal, you respond. You help. You care. That was the lesson of Pine Ridge. That was the message of the foundation. That was what would outlast all the fame and attention. In the end, Sarah realized it was not about one rescue or one celebrity or one village. It was about a simple idea, that every person matters, that every act of kindness counts, and that ordinary people working together can change the world. The stars came out above the mountains, bright and beautiful. Sarah smiled. Tomorrow she would wake up and teach her second graders. She would tend her garden. She would review scholarship applications. She would be Sarah Chen, teacher, friend, board member, and most importantly, member of a community that had shown the world what courage really looks like. And somewhere in Los Angeles, John Cena would wake up and continue his work with the foundation. Marcus would drive him to meetings and film shoots. Lisa would coordinate production schedules. And all of them would carry the lesson of Pine Ridge with them. The lesson that heroes are not found in movies. They are found in small towns and big cities, in classrooms and garages, in young people and old. They are found wherever someone sees another person in need and makes the choice to help. That was the real story. Not about one rescue, but about millions of potential rescues happening every day when ordinary people choose courage over comfort, connection over isolation, and caring over indifference. And it all started with an SOS signal in the sky and a village that decided to answer.